All right, let's talk about something a lot of people misunderstand completely. Picture someone at a family dinner. Everyone's laughing, someone jokes about Uncle so-and-so needing his drink, and it gets brushed off as personality, as a quirk, as just who he is. But here's the thing you rarely stop to ask. Why does one person's brain treat alcohol like an old friend it can't say no to, while another person could leave a half-finished glass of wine on the table and forget it exists? We love to explain addiction with simple words like weak willpower or bad choices, but the psychological reality underneath is so much stranger, so much sadder, and honestly, so much more human than that. Let me show you what's actually happening, because once you understand it, you'll never look at addiction the same way again. Your brain runs on a reward system that's been finely tuned over millions of years to keep you alive, to make you crave food when you're hungry, closeness when you're lonely, safety when you're scared. Dopamine is the messenger in that system, and its job isn't really to make you feel good, not exactly. Its job is to make you want. Alcohol hijacks that wanting circuit in a way almost nothing else does. It floods your brain with a kind of relief that feels less like pleasure and more like an exhale after holding your breath for years. And here's what nobody warns you about. The brain doesn't just enjoy that relief, it remembers it, it maps it. It starts building a highway straight to it. Think about the last time you felt truly anxious, or truly alone, or truly exhausted by the weight of just being a person in the world. Now imagine finding one thing, one single easily accessible thing that made all of that noise go quiet, even for an hour. Wouldn't some part of you want to go back to that quiet? That's not a moral failing. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do. Seek relief, avoid pain, repeat what works. The tragedy of addiction isn't that people are choosing poorly, it's that their brains found something that works a little too well, a little too fast, and a little too often. There's a researcher named Bruce Alexander who ran an experiment decades ago that quietly reshaped how psychologists think about this whole topic. He built something called Rat Park, an environment full of toys, tunnels, other rats to socialize with, basically a rodent utopia, and compared it to rats living alone in bare cages. In the isolated cages, rats drank morphine-laced water compulsively. In Rat Park, surrounded by connection and stimulation, they barely touched it. The implication is almost uncomfortable in how simple it sounds. Addiction isn't just about the substance, it's about the environment, the isolation, the emptiness a person is trying to fill. Alcohol doesn't create the void, it just becomes really good at hiding it for a little while. And this is where the guilt spiral tends to start, because the very thing that once soothed the pain eventually becomes a new source of it. That's the cruel design of tolerance. Your brain adjusts to the presence of alcohol, recalibrates its baseline, and suddenly what used to feel like relief now just feels like normal, while its absence feels like withdrawal, like danger, like something is deeply wrong. It's not that the person is giving in every time they reach for a drink. It's that their nervous system has quietly redefined what stability even means. Sobriety starts to feel unsafe, not because the person is broken, because their internal thermostat has been reset by repetition.
There's also something deeply psychological happening around identity here. Addiction rarely exists in isolation. It usually walks hand in hand with shame. And shame is one of the most corrosive emotions a person can carry, because unlike guilt, which says, I did something bad, shame whispers, I am something bad. And when someone believes that about themselves, alcohol can start to feel less like a choice and more like a confirmation, a way of living down to an identity they've already accepted. This is why judgment rarely helps, and connection almost always does. People don't drink their way out of shame. They drink because of it, and then the drinking creates more of it, and the loop tightens. But here's where I want to gently shift the lens, because addiction isn't just a story about vulnerability. It's also, strangely, a story about how deeply human the need for relief is. Every single one of us has something we reach for when the world feels like too much. Scrolling, overworking, overeating, numbing out in front of a screen. Alcohol addiction just happens to be one of the more visible, more stigmatized versions of a very universal impulse, the impulse to escape discomfort. Understanding that doesn't excuse the damage addiction can cause, but it does dissolve some of the us versus them thinking that keeps people stuck in shame instead of moving toward help. If there's one thing I hope you carry away from this, it's that addiction was never really about the substance. It was about the ache the substance was trying to quiet. And when you understand that, compassion becomes so much easier for the people around you carrying this struggle, and maybe even for yourself in whatever quieter ways you've learned to cope. So the next time you catch yourself judging someone's relationship with alcohol or judging your own, try asking a softer question instead of a harsher one. Not why can't they just stop, but what are they trying not to feel? That question alone might be the beginning of real understanding. If this gave you a new way of seeing something familiar, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more of these deep dives into the psychology behind human behavior, stick around, because there's a lot more beneath the surface than most of us ever get taught. This is a sensitive topic, so if you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol use, I'm glad to help you find real support resources. Just let me know.